I was told he can't play. I was told that 1-5 record was all on him. Well, how about over 400 yards and 5 touchdowns from our quarterback? Garbers balls. UCLA has its first win in the Big Ten. And hey, maybe this season has a little bit of life. We'll debate, but above all else, we'll celebrate on today's edition of the Locked On UCLA Postcast. When? Right now.
You are Locked On Bruins Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Los Angeles on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Fours up, Bruin Nation. What's going on? Welcome back to the latest edition of the Locked On UCLA Postcast, coming at you live on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel and after the fact wherever you get the Locked On UCLA podcast feed. Bruins win. Bruins win. We haven't got to say it since week 1 in Hawaii, but the Bruins go to New Jersey. They fly across the country. All we hear is about how much this team has to travel and how difficult it's going to be. They travel all the way to the birthplace of college football at Rutgers against a 4-2 Rutgers team that's not amazing, but not terrible. And boy, does Ethan Garbers silence the haters. How about Bieniemy? How about DeShaun Foster? And how about the first ever win in the Big Ten Conference for our Bruins? It's going to be a fun show today because we know how outspoken I have been about defending Ethan Garbers, maybe a little bit more than people think I should, than a lot of people think I should. And I'm not here to do full victory laps as much as I want to make this a 30-minute victory lap show. But at the same time, I wasn't without any criticism towards Ethan Garbers. I criticized him after the blown game against Minnesota, okay? But at the same time, what did I keep saying? He's better than Justin Martin. The run game is a bigger issue than Garbers. The offensive line is a bigger issue than Garbers. The play calling is a bigger issue than Garbers. Everything else looked good, and then Garbers looked great, okay? We're going to jump into it. But first and foremost, shout out to everybody in here as always. This is going to be the most positive, most fun Locked On UCLA Postcast ever because we've only had one other win to talk about, and that was an underwhelming win at Hawaii. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Shout out to all of you. And, of course, shout out to the sponsor of today's show. It is FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, look, being a quarterback, you know what comes with being a quarterback. You know what you're signing up for. When the team wins, you get all the credit. You get all the glory. When the team loses, you get all the criticism. And we know that's what's gone towards Ethan Garbers this season. In my opinion, more than it should have been. Has Garbers been stellar? No, not at all. Other than today, of course. I'm talking about the beginning of the season. Okay? But there's people on Twitter arguing with me that Justin Martin should still be the guy. Am I missing? Justin Martin scored 3 points until a garbage time final drive against Penn State. And for some reason, that's better than Garbers doing what he did in the first half against LSU. Doing what he did in the bowl game last year. Doing what he did against USC. Doing what he did against Stanford. Wait a second, okay? If the 1-5 start is all on Ethan Garbers, then dang it, having over 400 yards and 5 touchdowns in a win, all the credit better go to Ethan Garbers. Just keep it consistent. That's all I ask. I try to keep it consistent in terms of not overreacting to anything and actually looking at things with an objective point of view. Some people aren't going to be like that. Some people are going to say it's on the quarterback every time. Okay, well, if all the criticism goes to Ethan Garbers when we lose, all the praise better go to him. Once again, over 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. The man threw for 383 yards a week after he set his previous career high at 293. What does he do? He responds with 383 on 32 of 38 for 4 touchdowns. No picks. We know that's been the biggest criticism. Oh, then by the way, on the ground, he just decides to scramble for a 49-yard touchdown, what might be one of the best QB runs we've seen in the country this year from a guy who is not a dual threat quarterback, okay? He put the team on his back. Did he actually get help in the run game? Yes, kind of. I mean, Not even really that much. Berger goes 10 for 28. Harden goes 7 for 14. Keegan Jones goes 2 for 11. So did he even really get that much help in the run game? No. He did it all himself. The leading rusher. Of course, the leading passer. Did he get help in terms of the offensive line having its best performance of the season? Absolutely. He actually had time to throw. But above all else, the play calling. What did I say when Justin Martin did what he did against Penn State in terms of not turning the ball over? I said, credit to Justin Martin for not turning the ball over, but why does it take a backup quarterback coming in for Eric Bieniemy to realize he's not coaching Patrick Mahomes? He can't call exotic plays down the field, throwing the ball deep every time. You got to have short passing game to manage and mitigate this poor offensive line, to manage and mitigate Ethan Garbers not being a top 5 quarterback in the nation or anything, because nobody's arguing that, not even myself, okay? So what does Eric Bieniemy do today? He doesn't do it for a quarter. He doesn't do it for a half. For 4 quarters, he comes out and says, we're throwing the ball quick. If Rutgers wants to come out in that man-to-man, if you don't know about Rutgers coming into this game, the idea is press up, tight man-to-man, make things happen in the backfield, press up on receivers, and see what the other team can do. And I was concerned. Our offensive line is already bad. We have not been able to take advantage of having a really talented receiving core. I didn't know how we were going to fare against that type of defense. But what happens? Bieniemy says he does 2 things. He says, you want to play man-to-man? You think your corners are going to lock down our receivers? Okay. But can your linebackers lock down our tight ends? Can your linebackers lock down our running backs? The answer is no, okay? Your corners might be good. They might be able to press up on, they didn't even lock down the receivers. But look at, of those 383 yards, Keegan Jones, 5 for 114. Maliki Madaval, the tight end, 6 for 104. Titus has 54 yards, but then the next highest is TJ Harden with 34. 3 of the top 4 receivers, including the top 2, are not receivers. So Bieniemy, showing why there's people who thought he was next in line to be a great head coach in the NFL, he says, wait a second. Exactly like Easy Win says here in the comments, he says, about time, offensive coordinator getting down to a short passing attack and getting ball to running backs. Exactly. Why did I like flashes of that Minnesota game? Because we said, okay, we can't run the ball at all, but let's at least get some screens to TJ Harden to get him the ball in space. And I've been clamoring all year, all the past 3 years. Get Keegan Jones the ball, man. He is so electric when he gets the ball. So what does Bieniemy do? He says, whatever if your corners lock down our receivers. I don't really care. Your linebackers aren't going to lock down our tight ends and running backs. We saw Madaval on that first drive, several catches in the middle of the field, including on 3rd down. We saw Keegan Jones have a huge 67-yard touchdown. We saw TJ Harden have a huge 22-yard touchdown. These aren't 5-yard checkdowns, which we had some of. And that's what Justin Martin did as well in the Penn State game. Yeah, he could do a 3-yard check down here. He could do a 4-yard check down there. He had 1 wheel route throw to TJ Harden. Cool. But Garbers gave you the wheel route to Keegan Jones. He gave you the check downs, but he gave you the seed down the seam to TJ Harden. He gave you several plays where he steps up in the pocket, makes something happen, finds Madaval in the middle of the zone. He has several plays where Logan Loya goes across the middle for a nice gain. J.Michael Sturdivant doesn't have a catch again one of those days, but it wasn't one of those days where he didn't have a catch because nothing was happening. It was just a smart game plan. Take him out of the game, fine. We'll head everybody else. How about Titus with several catches in traffic? And Garbers putting it right on the money. Slants, right on the money. Crossing routes, right on the money. Early on, the throws were not as accurate as I would hope for from Garbers, honestly. That Logan Loya touchdown wasn't the best throw. But it's a great play call. It's man-to-man coverage. Logan Loya, who was in the doghouse the first couple of weeks for no reason. Oh, wait, we remembered. He's a great slot receiver. Create separation, back corner pylon, boom, touchdown UCLA. And they did not stop. 14 points in the second quarter thanks to that unbelievable Garbers scramble. Can we take another moment to talk about that? Evade pressure, step up. It's not a design read option. It's not an RPO. It's Garbers in the pocket. Okay, for once, he doesn't hold on for too long. He gets out of there, one-on-one with the linebacker. Skirt! Where are you going? Okay, I'm thinking, nice, great 15-yard run. But then, like a lot of people rightly said online, look at the blocking down the field after Garbers does what again, by the way? He goes, skirt. Yeah, Garbers goes skirt, and then we see 3 or 4 receivers and tight ends make phenomenal blocks, and it turns into a nice juke and 15-yard gain into a 49-yard rushing touchdown from Ethan Garbers. At that point on, I said, okay, I don't know what's going to happen in this game, but Garbers has arrived, at least in this game, at least in this system now, and this team is not giving up despite the 1-5 record, despite everything that's being said about them. And so you got to give the credit to Garbers. If you're going to criticize them when they're 1-5, even though it's everybody's fault, and in my opinion, like 3 or 4 other units' faults before Ethan Garbers, once again, one of the bottom 5 or 10 running games in the entire country, and still today, by the way, one of the bottom 5 or 10 offensive lines in the entire country, an offensive coordinator who took until the last couple of weeks. It took Justin Martin coming into the game against Penn State for Bieniemy to realize he doesn't have Patrick Mahomes and he needs to change things up. DeShaun Foster, still a couple game management things that could have been done better. Don't know why we're kicking a 55-yard field goal up 10. What does that do? It puts you up 13. Okay, they need 2 touchdowns. But the way the defense was playing in terms of giving up long drives in seconds, you might as well kick it down, punt the ball and make them have to earn their 7 points instead of having them score it in 5 seconds. Now, luckily, we got the pick there, and we'll get to the defense quite a bit in the next couple of segments. But DeShaun Foster, not perfect, but his best coaching performance, and Eric Bieniemy's best coaching performance, and Ethan Garbers, unsurprisingly, then has his best performance. Okay, the line had his best performance as well. So when everything else around the quarterback is better, of course the quarterback's going to be better. And when he is competent at worst, like I think he is, he balled out. He balled out. We haven't seen quarterback performances like that in a while from UCLA. Easily the best performance we've seen from Garbers, better than even last year against SC. 5 touchdowns without a pick, over 400 total yards, the leading rusher, the leading thrower, the leading everything, the only scorer. Ethan Garbers. Give him his flowers, okay? If you're going to give him all the criticism, give him his flowers. When we come back from our first break, we'll talk a little bit more about the offense, but we're going to start the segment talking about the defense. I put bend, don't break right there. There was a lot of bending, and there was a little bit of breaking, okay? They gave up 32 points, but a couple times it could have been a lot worse, and they survived. A couple little key plays made it good enough. Of course, it's UCLA, so they're going to make it interesting late, and they did. But the Bruins survive. The defense gives up 32 points, but it still deserves a little bit of credit. We'll talk about that after our first break here on this, happy Locked On UCLA Postcast. I'll be right back. Now, once again, today's show is brought to you by Hims. And I had some people laughing at me for doing this ad read yesterday, but I'm doing it again. Today's show is brought to you by Hims, because you know what, guys? Sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously, and we always want to be ready so we can perform in the bedroom. Hims provides access to treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer, giving you that boost of confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Your sex life is important, but your schedule is busy. You don't have the time to go to a doctor's office to get treated for ED, but through Hims, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. It provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis, and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. So start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. HIMS.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. Hims, everybody. Speaking of Hims, you know who's him? Ethan Garbers today. Once again, 383 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, completes 32 of his 38 passes. He has a 49-yard rushing touchdown, which might be the play of the season for UCLA so far. And the Bruins pick up their first ever Big 10 victory, 35-32 over Rutgers, and what ended up being quite the shootout. It started like it was going to be a shootout. I mean, UCLA and Rutgers both go down and score on their first drive. UCLA goes 11 plays, 75 yards in 6 minutes, and then Rutgers responds with an 8-play, 75-yard drive in 4 minutes and 20 seconds, and you're instantly thinking, okay, this is going to be like a 49-42 type of game. Then things slow down a bit, back-to-back punts, but then a Bruin touchdown makes it 14-7. Rutgers makes it 14-10. UCLA makes it 21-10 before the half with a huge drive. In 46 seconds, they go 75 yards thanks to that 22-yard touchdown from Garbers to TJ Harden. And at 21-10 at half, you're feeling good. Still online, there's people telling me, stop celebrating. Garbers finally had a good half. That's what he's supposed to do, yada, 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 all this nonsense. Do you want to be happy that UCLA is good, or do you just want to whine and complain? Be happy. Be objective, of course. And I forgot to introduce myself for those who don't know. I am Gavin Carlson, a recent UCLA alum who graduated in June. So I'm a diehard fan. I also grew up a Bruin. My mother went to this school. So I'm an alum. I'm the son of an alum. Oh, yeah. And when I was at UCLA, I covered this team as a journalist. So I understand every perspective. I understand being gung-ho when they do well. I understand being critical when they look the way they've looked the last 5 games. I understand being objective, though, at the same time. And I don't know why so many people are so negative when you have a good first half. And luckily, instead of him crumbling like some UCLA fans are rooting for, Garbers stepped up again. How about immediately, does have a 3-and-out, but then the next play, 67-yard touchdown to Ethan Garbers, or to Keegan Jones on the second play. And then the next drive, how about another 70-yard drive? These aren't 20-yard drives, okay? These are starting the ball at your own 20, your own 25, your own 30, and going all the way down the field every time. All right? UCLA only has 1, 2, 3, 4 drives that don't result in touchdowns out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Out of the 9 drives, there's 5 touchdowns, 4 that don't result in touchdowns. One of them is a missed field goal. One of them is a fumble by Garbers, which, in my opinion, is him doing exactly what everybody wants him to do, and it's pull the ball down instead of throwing a risky throw and maybe risking an interception late with a big lead. Now, unfortunately, when he pulls the ball down, he gets hit by his lineman and fumbles, but I'm not going to be mad at that. So you have a fumble that's not really his fault, or even if it is, I'd rather have that than a bad interception. You have a missed field goal, and then you have 2 punts. One's a 3-and-out, where you're really never going to have a chance in that drive, and the other one is a punt where you go 50 yards down the field, and then it's actually a beautiful pooch punt. So pretty darn good performance from the offense, okay? We'll leave it at that. Real quick, we'll get to the defense. 32 points is not great, okay? Not at all. 22 points in the second half after a solid first half where you only give up 10. And the biggest thing here is I'm going to say it was bend, don't break from the defense, because there's a couple of times where it could have been a lot worse, all right? UCLA makes it 14-7. Rutgers immediately is going down the field. 17 yards to Ian Strong, 14 yards to KJ Duff. 12 yards to Ian Strong again. It looks like Rutgers is in position now. 1st and 10 at the UCLA 31, trying to make it 14-14 late in the second quarter. But what happens? I'm looking at comments here and laughing from Easy Win. We'll get to that in a second. But Rutgers gets to the 31, and then they have 3 straight incomplete passes. UCLA holds Rutgers to a 49-yard field goal, and they make it. Credit to them. That's a long kick. They made it. We missed our 55-yard kick, but bend, don't break there. Could have been 14-14. Instead, it's 14-10, and then UCLA is able to make it 21-10 at the half. You have an 11-point lead, so that even when Rutgers then does march down the field in 2 minutes and go 75 yards right out the half, that was really discouraging for me. I tweeted it. DeShaun Foster has proven that when we're down at half or when we're against a team we're supposed to lose to, he can be a motivator of men. But when you're up 21-10 and you need to have a different message of, hey, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, but let's lock in. Instead of that, we see Rutgers march down the field in a matter of seconds and score a touchdown. There I'm concerned, okay? But after that, they score a touchdown. They go for 2. UCLA stops them. Could have been 21-18. Could have been a 3-point game. But no, UCLA stops the 2-point conversion. It's still a 5-point game. So then, when Rutgers marches down again, gets in field goal range, you're thinking, uh-oh, a Rutgers touchdown is going to get them the lead. It's 3rd and 6 at the 13. UCLA gets a stop, forces a field goal, And guess what? Because of the 2-point conversion stop on the last drive, instead of the field goal making it 21-21, the field goal makes it 21-19. So you're still leading. To me, that was the key sequence for our defense. Bend but don't break. You bend and give up a touchdown in a matter of seconds, but you don't allow a key 2-point conversion. Then you bend again and let the team get all the way to your 13, but you don't break, and you give up 3 instead of 7. So that way, when UCLA has their big touchdown to Keegan Jones, we're back up 9, and there's no need to worry. We force a punt on the next drive. We go up 16. At this point, it's let's not let Rutgers score in 2 seconds. They do score in a minute 38, which once again shows you why there was a lot of bending from this defense. It wasn't fantastic to any degree, but good enough. You miss a field goal, UCLA does, and then immediately, 3 plays later, UCLA gets a pick. So there was a lot of bending. There was even a touchdown in the last minute 45 of the game. Then there was an onside kick that could have tied it, right? UCLA bent quite a bit, but they didn't break. I'm not going to run around and say the defense looks elite or anything. It's looked okay at times. You still gave up 287 yards to Kaliakmanis. I'm going to try it again. The quarterback for Rutgers, who I actually thought looked pretty good. Monongai, we know he's a special running back. He does go for 106 and 3 touchdowns. So I'm not going to praise the defense or anything. But they did enough. They did enough. And it's enough for a win. I'm not going to complain when you get a win. Let's be happy. Let's celebrate, because we know you lose this game and you're looking at maybe not winning a game in the Big Ten, okay? You're maybe looking at people talking about UCLA should be in the new Pac-12 with all these random Mountain West teams instead of playing against the Michigans and Ohio States every year. But luckily, we go to Rutgers. We get an impressive win. The score looks closer than the game honestly was because we were up 16 late. And now there's a little bit of momentum. Nebraska just got absolutely pummeled by Indiana. So our Indiana loss is looking less and less embarrassing each week because Indiana is legit. And they're looking like a team that should be ranked in the top 10, okay? They go 56-7 against Nebraska. Indiana might be a top 10 team. So then let's reevaluate this season so far for UCLA. I'll do that after the last break because I have quite a lot to say about our season now. Real quick, we'll get to this comment from Easy Win. He says, do your bleeping thing. The criticism is legit. I see it the same way. I don't really know what you're referencing in terms of the criticism. If you're saying the criticism towards Ethan Garbers is legit and you think that he deserves to be criticized, hey, I respect it. I'm not here to silence people's opinions. I'm here to debate them. Like I said on Twitter, let's debate and celebrate this win. I think Ethan Garbers is a lot better than people have been saying. I think if you're going to say that he needs to be better, that's fair. But to say blasphemous things like Justin Martin scoring 3 points against Penn State is more impressive than what Garbers has done against SC, against Stanford, against LSU in the first half this year. And what he did this first half and this game, come on. That's where I say you're being ridiculous. So I don't know what your comment is referring to exactly. Also, what up, Craig? Good to see you, as always, and I'll see you tomorrow for the Locked On Rams postcast. But when we come back from our last break on this Locked On UCLA postcast, I'm going to review this start to the season and say maybe we need to look at this 2-5 record, this 1-4 in the Big Ten, and rethink it a little bit, and also rethink our expectations going forward. Because we've got 4 Big Ten games that are all winnable and losable at the same time. So we'll talk about it after our last break here on this victory edition of the Locked On UCLA Postcast. I'll be right back. Now, finally, today's show is brought to you once again by FanDuel. If you don't know what FanDuel is, I mean, maybe you're living under a rock, to be honest, but it's America's #1 sportsbook. So, hey, NFL fans, hey, football fans, college football fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And you'll get started, here's the best part, with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet on FanDuel. I did it in the summer when I was in a state where it was legal in New York. I bet $5. I won the $5 bet. I got $200 in bonus bets for free. I bet that on the Yankees game that I went to later in the week. All of those hit. I made a lot of money on my New York vacation, and good thing I did because it was quite expensive. So take advantage if you're in a state where it's legal at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Back here live one more time on Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel. This is the Locked On UCLA Postcast. I'm Gavin Carlson, former UCLA credentialed journalist, former UCLA student, current UCLA alum, son of a UCLA alum, UCLA through and through, and that's why I'm really buzzed, really happy. The Bruins end a 5-game losing streak and an 0-4 start in Big Ten play with a 35-32 win over Rutgers at Rutgers, traveling across the country. Once again, really surprised and pleased with the amount of blue and gold I saw in the crowd, being literally as far away from UCLA as humanly possible. Real quick, to end this show, we're going to examine the beginning of UCLA season now that we have more context, and also look forward to the rest of the UCLA season now that we have more context, now that we've seen UCLA's potential and how good they can play. What should we expect the rest of this year? What would make this obviously it's still a disappointing season, but a less disappointing season. First and foremost, I already talked about Indiana. Once again, that 42-13 loss in the moment looked like a program-defining loss, we are so screwed in the Big Ten, we might not win a game in the Big Ten loss. Now it looks like, okay, bad loss at home, but Indiana is my goodness. Once again, 56-7 against Nebraska. This is a Nebraska team that kicked Shadur and Deion Sanders' butt earlier in the season. Nebraska killed Colorado. I know Nebraska has not been perfect this season. If I remember correctly, they just barely beat, or I think they might have destroyed Rutgers. No, they just barely beat Rutgers 14-7. So wait a second. Nebraska beat Rutgers. Nebraska beat Colorado. Nebraska barely lost to a ranked Illinois team. They handled Purdue, and they lost by 49 points to Indiana. Indiana's a top 10 team in the country. That's the verdict, okay? So now, knowing that, let's examine UCLA's start to the season. You have a underwhelming win at Hawaii, but it's a win. And it's the first game of the DeShaun Foster era. It's the first game of the Eric Bieniemy era. A lot of unknowns. And they looked really bad, but they won, okay? So there's that. Now that we've said Indiana's a top 10 team, you get pummeled at home by a top 10 team. Frustrating, disappointing, but kind of what you expect in the first ranked opponent for DeShaun Foster. Of course, this is all in hindsight. They were not ranked at the time. But we can confidently say now that Indiana is probably one of the 10 best teams in the country. Okay, so UCLA got manhandled by a top 10 team. Then UCLA traveled to number 16 LSU. First time they've ever played at LSU, one of the toughest environments in college football. They are stride for stride with the Tigers in the first half. They lose in the second half. Okay. Then they get killed at home by an Oregon team that just beat Ohio State. An Oregon team that might be the one or two best teams in the country. Okay? And then UCLA loses by a couple touchdowns at Penn State, another one of the top 5 toughest places to play in college football, right? With a backup quarterback in Justin Martin. Okay. So let's re-examine that. 4 losses against 4 ranked teams, basically, right? Let me review where LSU is at this point, because maybe that loss looks a little worse than it did. Actually, no, LSU just beat Ole Miss. Who am I kidding? So let's take a moment here and look at what this schedule actually has been for UCLA. You lose at home to a top 10 team in Indiana. Then you lose at LSU, which is a top 8 team in the country. Then you lose at home against Oregon, which is the number 2 team in the country. And then you lose at Penn State, which is the number 3 team in the country. So wait a second now. All with a first-time head coach who we all know is really not ready to be a head coach, with a first-time college offensive coordinator who has proven he was not ready for that switch until maybe right now, this week. So think about all of those games. One more time, just to remind everybody. You get killed by a top 10 team. You get killed but are competitive at times against a top 8 team at their place. You're competitive for like a half, and then you get killed against the number 2 team in the country in Oregon. And then you're competitive / kind of get killed at Penn State, which is the number 3 team in the country. 3 top 8 teams, 2 top 3 teams, 4 top 10 teams in a row. What did we think was going to happen, right? The Minnesota loss is frustrating. Minnesota's not a great team. But Minnesota beat SC. Minnesota's not terrible. And then we beat Rutgers. At Rutgers. Who beat Nebraska. Who beat Colorado. And Barely lost to Illinois. So I think, is 2-5 great? Is 1-4 in the Big Ten great? Absolutely not. Is it still an underwhelming, unsuccessful season? Absolutely. But is it a disastrous, program-defining, we are ruined for the next 10 years season? No. Okay? And guess what? We got to go to Nebraska. And it's going to be a pissed-off Nebraska team that just got killed by Indiana. But you got at Nebraska, at home against Iowa, at Washington, at home against USC. I can see UCLA winning 2 of those next 4. Okay? If UCLA wins 2 of those next 4, and you're telling me they're, what would that make them? 3-6 in the Big Ten? And then you beat Fresno State? You finish with 5 wins when everyone had the over-under at 4.5, 5.5 anyways. And that's when we thought the UCLA schedule was going to be tough with those 3 games. That's before we knew that Indiana was also a top 10 team. Okay? So that would be okay. That would be okay. And with the recruiting and with everything, and with DeShaun Foster obviously only having room to improve as a head coach, with Bieniemy only having room to improve as a coordinator in the college level. Of course, it'll be a new quarterback next year, but there's a little bit more promise than we could originally say. Coming into just this week alone, okay? Yes, you lost 5 games in a row, but 4 of them are against top 10 teams. 2 of them against top 3 teams, okay? It could be a lot worse. It could be a lot worse. That's all I'm going to say. If we go into Nebraska and beat Nebraska, now wait a second. I think Garbers, DeShaun Foster, Bieniemy deserve a lot of apologies, including from myself, because I've still been hypercritical of all of them, all right? And that's why this is also laughable. I was the Dante Moore defender, Ethan Garbers criticizer last year, okay? It's so funny that I've become the face of defending Garbers in the UCLA community. It's really, really funny. But let's go celebrate this win. The Bruins have a win in the Big Ten. We traveled all the way across the country and beat a Big Ten team. There was blue and gold in the crowd in New Jersey. We're not, 0 whatever in the conference. And now there's a sign that maybe we can win 2 of our next 4 games. I would love to win one of the next 2 against Nebraska or Iowa. Those are 2 Big Ten staple programs. Of course, they're not, Michigan and Ohio State. But those are 2 Big Ten teams that are supposed to have an offensive line and defensive line that's just going to overpower UCLA. And UCLA is a soft baby blue basketball program. We win one of those 2 games, all the Big Ten elitists can shut up. We belong. And then if we win one of the next 2 against Washington or USC, then it's an okay season, okay? That's all I'll say. So we're going to wrap this one up. Let's go celebrate. I know I will. It's been a long year. So it feels good to get a win, especially when the quarterback that's been criticized performs. The offensive line looks competent. The running game looked okay. DeShaun Foster looks competent. Bieniemy looks competent. The defense looks okay. It's better than it's looked. And we'll leave it at that. All right? Go celebrate. And you heard me hit him with the and we are the mighty Bruins. Go celebrate. Go play that fight song. It feels good today. For the first time in a while, I was at the gym watching the game. I was wearing my UCLA shirt, and for once, people didn't look at it and laugh. They said, hey, we won. Good job. Congrats. Go Bruins. I love it. Oh, it's so much better. It feels good to win. Go celebrate. Go leave a like. Go comment. Go subscribe if you haven't already. I'll be back here tomorrow for the Locked On Rams because the Rams are going to beat the Raiders the same way UCLA just beat Rutgers. And then I'll, of course, be back next week for UCLA Nebraska. I'm planning to be at Iowa. And you know what? Because Sean asked, he says, where's the A clap? I'll give it to you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA, fight. There you go, Sean. I'll give it to you, Sean. I'll give it to you. All right. Bruins win. The sun is a little bit brighter in Westwood today than it has been all season. Let's go beat Nebraska at Nebraska. If so, I will be at that Iowa game, and I will be fired up. I want to meet some of you guys, and maybe we can turn this darn season around, okay? Go wear your UCLA shirts with pride. Go smile. Go celebrate. Go soak up the sun. This has been the Locked On UCLA Postcast. I'm Gavin Carlson, and as always, but especially after a win, 4's up. Go Bruins. So long, everybody. Take care.